April 2024, I was laid off from a job as an appointment setter for this one company that I was working for, partially because they were overstaffed and partially because I just wasn't good enough back then. So it was my only source of income as an 18-year-old who had moved from Venezuela in South America to Spain, who wasn't even legally allowed to work in the country yet. For 3 months of my life, I then proceeded to work at a soul sucking factory job doing nothing but pressing metal pipes in a press machine and just doing that same thing for 2,000 or 3,000 plus times a day. It was the kind of job where I couldn't even be caught listening to music, even with AirPods on, because even though the job didn't need me to be listening to other people, because it was very isolated, kind of alone kind of work, I was still not allowed to even listen to music because the boss would get pissed off. Heck, even in the middle of the Madrid summer heat in a freaking warehouse under 40 degrees Celsius weather, I was once caught using a fan that an employee was kind enough to leave for me, sorry. And the boss got so pissed off at it that he started shouting at me for using a fan whilst working, even though that like had zero negative impact on anybody. If anything, it was just making me work better because I had some cooling, right? But at the end of the day, with like cuts in my hands, I'd be all dirty, physically exhausted, and I thought to myself, this was what it meant to be a man. This is what the path that I had to go through had to look like before I was ever deserving or worthy of going after my vision. And so in this video, I will talk about the 3 beliefs that will hold you back and that held me back from making 2K to 4K plus a month online. And I'm also going to walk you through how I overcame those and how you can do that for yourself. Now, without further ado, I want to give a quick heads up that when I speak about these beliefs, looking back at them, they seem very autistic. They seem very like neurotic and things that come as a result of overthinking. And I think that was the case. But at the same time, it's like when you wholeheartedly believe something and when you're truly like in a trance where you have a belief that you really believe, it's like in the moment you never actually think that it was dumb, or you never actually think that it was absurd to believe it. It's only looking back at it that you're like, oh yeah, that was dumb of me to believe. So that I'm just giving you that heads up as we go into this. But that being said, first belief is online work or remote work isn't real work. So for some context, I lived a good portion of my life in Venezuela, in South America, and certain people in my family would oftentimes criticize me for working from a computer, for locking myself in my room for a good chunk of the day and just working on my business or my goals, because of the very fact that it was remote. And honestly, to be fair, looking back at it, it's like, they were old school people. They've never done anything remotely. Like the whole concept of working remotely and living like a digital nomad was a completely new concept. So it's not like it was that popular back then. But basically, I used to get called like these nicknames like digital cretin, not creatine as in like the creatine powder, but like it's this other word that is essentially translates to like digital fool or digital nerd. Basically, like these adjectives and these words used to describe somebody that like knows nothing of life. Like the only thing they grew up on is like the internet. They can't think for themselves, etc., etc. I used to get told stuff like, "Now I'm wasting my time. I should go get myself a real job. Like I'm gonna suffer when I go into the real world. Like I'm just I'm basically isolating myself and like I'm a subhuman. Like these kind of weird beliefs. That I mean, even though sometimes I'd explicitly get told those kind of things, sometimes it was even more like a feeling of how maybe in social situations, like maybe I just get treated differently because of the fact that I was that one guy that was just working remotely and people thought it was a waste of time. Anyway, that little side tangent aside, if you eventually repeat a lie to yourself long enough, you start to believe it. And so that's what happened to me. I used to start taking what these people said to heart just because in my mind they were ahead of me. I look at somebody who had more money than me. I look at people who were more financially successful, right? And the reason I put that in quotations is they were more financially successful, but they weren't necessarily in the place where I wanted to be at. But I'd take that and I'd see that, okay, this person's older than me. They have like a physical business, right? They're doing something for work. It's working out for them. They're making money. So they must be right and I must be wrong. That was kind of the frame that I held back then. And what got me to, over time, like integrate a lot of these beliefs that were absolutely false. And so to move on from that, for a very long time, I've always had this goal of wanting to move out. And, the reason, I really couldn't if I were to try to work like a normal physical job back then. Because at the time, if I'm not mistaken, the average salary in Venezuela, I think this might still be the case, by the way, it was about $100 to $200 a month. It was a measly, like absurd amount, right? So if I like to come to Spain, it was like $1,500 for a plane ticket. If I had wanted to try to do that, I think it was actually like more like closer to $1,000, but you get my point. If I had wanted to do that based off of working those jobs, it would have taken me like at least a year of saving up, right? And so, and that's not even to mention like having enough money set aside for like living expenses and here in Spain. So you get my point. Basically, it would take a long time of saving up, and I knew it would take me minimum like a year and a half to 2 years. So that belief of like online work is a real work, and I knew that if I pursued that belief, I would not have been able to move out in a time frame that I wanted to do. I know that it would have taken me so much longer, and probably it wouldn't even have been possible. Long story short, I did stick to remote work for that time, even though I like every part of my being felt like it was against it, and I did end up moving out. But then that same belief that lingered with me even after I moved out eventually is exactly the same belief that led me to quit like my online business, led me to quit like appointment setting for a while, to get into like physical work, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But when I basically when I got to Spain, and I worked as an appointment setter, and I lost that job that I spoke about, through that same belief that I had of like remote work isn't real work, like I need to go try to be a real man and experience real life. I went down that rabbit hole, and I ended up working at a factory. So I ended up working at this factory that, like I said, it was super soul sucking. The work was not meaningful at all, and I was making just under minimum wage. Like it was it was not making any good money at all. It was like probably 800 euros a month or something. So I was doing that, and while doing that job, I had some realizations, because I did that for about 3 months. And with time, like at the beginning, I was very hyped about it. I was like, yes, I'm finally gonna like prove them wrong. I'm gonna show them that I can actually like do a real physical work or whatnot. It's like this ego stuff. But then when I was actually working that job, I realized I was so much worse off than where I previously was before. Like, at this point in time, as I was working this factory job, I was more depressed. Financially, I was in the dumps. My physique had gotten worse, right? Because then I was getting home stressed. I was just fucking binging ice cream and watching anime all night. My sleep was worse. Everything was worse. Like my entire life was just a net negative. But I still, by the way, I still had that same belief lingering in my mind that like what I was doing still wasn't real enough, that I had to do more, that this still is like I still had more to prove essentially to myself and to other people. And so the goalpost would keep on moving. Like, some points I'd literally try to like intentionally get into like welding and these like other crafts just so I can prove that I can do something and that's real, and like I can, take action in like the real world. It's like all these neurotic beliefs, right? Like I know it sounds very fucking autistic to listen to, and I'm only speaking to this. I'm only saying this for the person who might relate to this. So if that's not you, then then don't worry about it. But again, like I all along. By the way, objectively speaking, I knew throughout all this time that this belief that remote work and real work, I knew that was a limiting belief. I knew that belief was not real. But again, it's like when you're living through it, just like objectively knowing that a belief is wrong sometimes isn't enough to actually break out of it. It's like even though I knew that this belief was not true at all, I still kept indulging it. I still kept trying to prove to myself and trying to do more and like make my life intentionally harder for the sake of proving this belief, which in reality was just an insecurity. And the more that I tried to prove it, the more insecure I got, and the less of anything I solved. So, yeah, basically, looking back at it now, like I had through these realizations, like that time that I had at the factory where it just really wasn't enjoyable, that was kind of the turning point that led me to question these beliefs a lot more and to actually internalize like what the new beliefs would be and to see the truth for what it is. And now looking back at it, the way that I was able to reframe this belief is through the following questions and perspectives I'm about to propose. The first one will be, would you take financial advice from a homeless person? No, right? Same thing with like a Muay Thai coach trying to teach you Taekwondo. It wouldn't work out. Like the Muay Thai coach can teach you for sure how to like fight in Muay Thai and how to do that specific craft, but they can't teach you like the specifics of Taekwondo. That's what a Taekwondo coach is for. And likewise, a Taekwondo coach can't teach you how to do boxing unless they've boxed themselves and have done it, And so, what right does a person who has never made money online have to tell you that it's a waste of time? Because again, like looking back at it, like all these people who would talk shit to me, they had never like. They had to spend entire lives like doing this low leverage work, like lifting boxes, and doing this physical, like struggling kind of work for years and years and years before they were able to build any sort of success with like a physical local business. And so when they saw me like trying to fucking work remotely and make thousands online and achieve what took them 20 years in like 2 years, of course people are gonna start doubting you. Of course they're gonna like have some negativity towards it, which leads me on to my second point, which is that like people would genuinely just hate on you for having something that they wish themselves they had or they had done. Because if you think about it, like back then they didn't have like the internet, they didn't have computers, none of that was real. So when you look at nowadays, like people like are trying to make a living remotely, which is proven to have worked. It's like no shit they're questioning it. It's like the entire lives they've been sold, like they've grown up on this like concept of working like low leverage jobs and like doing like hard work, right? And so no shit that they're gonna shit on you when you go out and you try to do something that is completely new to them and they've never seen in their lives and they think is false because their path was a lot different from that. So looking back at it, it makes sense, right? But back to that topic, I mean, yeah, like first of all, I was saying that people will hate you and shit on you for you doing things and having things that they never had, probably out of envy or just out of their lack of like flexibility with their perspective. But then, like that's the first thing that helped me reframe, right? Which is kind of realizing that, like, not everybody who tells me things, not everyone's words should be taken as gospel. Because again, like you wouldn't take taekwondo advice from a boxing coach, right? And the same thing you want to see it that way. Just because somebody's more successfully or more financially successful than you, and let's say running a hair salon, like what right do they have to tell you that you can't run an online business and that it's fake? It's like they've never done it themselves. So it would be absurd for you to even believe that, right? But back to the same topic. So yeah, like number one is like you just gotta realize that you will get shit on for having shit that other people don't have that they consider to be unreal or whatever. The second thing is that if it was as easy and as comfortable as they make it out to be, then why don't they do it? And funny enough, like this is a question that I've asked somebody before, because at one point when I was living in Spain and I was living in this house, it was like a shared flat. There was this girl in the kitchen, right? And she kind of asked me like what I do for work. And I told her like, yeah, I work remotely. I do work in sales and appointment setting. And he's like, oh, wow, you're so lucky. Like it must be so great to work. Oh, like you don't have to commute. That's so, you're so lucky. And I just looked at her and I was like, okay, so if it's so great, why don't you do it? And she literally told me, "Oh no, it's just I'm not good with computers. Like I don't know how to do it. Like yeah, I'm just not very good with computers." Okay, so like why the fuck would you judge what I'm doing, and treat it as like this holy grail like luck kind of thing that just landed upon my lap when you yourself literally just said that you couldn't do it because you're not good with computers and you're making all these beliefs and all this bullshit and all these excuses as to why you can't do it. So that perspective shift, like it helped me understand that like the reason why like these people can shit talk all they want, but then if you really look at the situation objectively, the reason they don't have what they say that you're so lucky to have is just because they don't do the work for it. They let these beliefs stand in their way. And this, on the topic of beliefs, like you could have two of the exact same people. Like we could take a copy paste of the same person, right? So we have the exact same people, and then one person can have the belief that like I can't do online work because I'm bad with computers, and one person can have the belief that I can learn. And so the person who's like, oh yeah, I suck with online work, I can't learn, I'm bad with computers, that might be the person who goes on to work at a fucking factory for the rest of their lives. Meanwhile, the person who's like, I can learn, like nobody's born learning something, like that person might be the person who eventually goes on to work in remote sales and making like thousands online or be an entrepreneur running their own business. So it's like this one single perspective shift, and so much of everything is just perspective, right? And that single perspective alone could heavily change the trajectory of that person. And so I think when people kind of like, you know, make it seem like it's so easy and comfortable and lucky, like you shouldn't take that too hard, because there's a reason why they don't have it. If it was so easy and it was such a comfortable thing and it was something that everybody, like, it was so convenient for everybody, then why do not more people have it or do it, you know? But then that's the second thing that helped me reframe. The third question sort of, or the third approach, is breaking the belief down to its first principle. Let's just take work and let's break it down to a first principle. So, by the way, first principle thinking is like basically taking something that is like abstract or something like, for example, work, or what do you call it? I'm blanking right now. Basically taking a concept and then breaking it down to like its most fundamental truth. To not go too long or too far into the rabbit hole, it's like in math saying that 2 + 2 = 4. Like that's a first principle of math. It's an undeniable truth. So when you look at what work is in its first principle, it's literally just exerting an effort, or exerting energy, or effort to create value by producing a change. Or like maybe it's a bit of a twisted definition. Like if you take the physics one, it's probably a bit different, but you get my point. Basically, work is just putting some form of effort to achieve some form of result. So it doesn't matter whether you are physically moving boxes, whether you are painting a wall, whether you are like shooting at people, right? Or it doesn't matter if you are like typing on your computer or like fixing some ads. Like work is work when you're trying to achieve an outcome. Like You wouldn't fucking shit on an actor or a singer because they sing and say that that's not work. Like, of course it's work. They're doing something to produce an outcome. Like, it is work. So that's another like huge insecurity slash limiting belief that I had as well, which is that I would look at these like easier, supposedly easier kind of work paths and say that it just wasn't real work, based on this belief that I kind of had and the people around me, like I absorbed from the environment around me, and then over time, like I came to embody that belief. But yeah, it just doesn't matter what you do, man. Like work is work. So that's it for the first belief. That was quite a long rant, but then the second belief that held me back from making money online was the the harder path must be the right one. Like if it's not hard, then I haven't earned it. I don't deserve the life unless I struggle for it. It's basically this belief that if it's not hard and if it's not difficult and if you're not suffering for it, then you don't deserve it or you're not worthy of it. That's that second belief. And then, so through this belief, I eventually stopped enjoying any work that didn't have some form of physical like aspect to it. If I was working on a computer all day, I'd feel guilty because in my mind it was an easy path. And if I was like fucking fixing a tire on a car, I'd be like, oh bro, I'm so productive. Like I'm a masculine alpha male. Like I just fix a tire on a car. Like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm big boy. So like it really deterred my progress from actually enjoying and wanting to do work that is remote and that is higher leverage, right? Because this is the whole aspect of it. It doesn't matter if it's easy or hard. It just, what matters is doing what's the highest leverage. And I'll speak about how I reframe the belief in a second. But it's like I used to see all these guys on YouTube doing all these like odd jobs and gigs. I used to see like guys on YouTube who would resell like Christmas trees and like do this like hustle grind thing, like work Ubers in the evening and then work as prostitutes in the day. It's like this whole story that of where they came from. And I thought that for me to eventually be successful and have any level of success, I had to sort of suffer through the same upbringing that they had, like trying to force it basically. And I'd see guys like, for example, working in solar physically. I'd be like, before. So this guy was a solar sales guy, but before he got into solar sales, he was physically installing solar. Sorry. So I therefore I have to get into like solar installation and like go from the ground up. And I had all these limiting beliefs, right? I thought that taking the easy, or not the easy path, but like the shorter path. I thought that taking the shorter path felt cheesy or felt like it was cheating. So I felt like taking shortcuts was wrong. And if I tried taking shortcuts, then like I wasn't worthy of it. If I'm making sense right now. Another example of this is when I came to Spain and I was reaching out to apply for jobs. Objectively speaking, I knew that the best approach to get myself a job as quickly as possible would have been to go to recruiters, reach out to my network or people that I knew, and what was the third one? Reach out to online applications for people that already had job postings out there. But you want to know what I did instead because of this belief? I started physically going out on the street talking to construction workers. And by the way, I specifically would go after like construction workers, like the worst kind of labor that I could think of, like the bottom of the barrel, is what I'm trying to say. No shame to construction workers, by the way. I'm just saying like the most physical kind of demanding labor that was like not the most attractive. I'd specifically go for that kind of labor due to this belief, of course. And I started like giving resumes to like fucking construction workers. I'd go on the streets, like on Google Maps. I'd like write down the locations that I was at, go to like restaurants and factories and whatever. And even at some point, bro, I was literally contemplating going out and cold approaching random strangers and asking them for a job. It's like it got to that point, which is like I knew I could have very much easier or more easily gotten a job through all these other approaches, but I specifically took the harder path for the sake of proving a point. To basically it was an insecurity, right? Like I was saying like, oh, I'm proving it to myself, but in reality it was just this thing that didn't need proving. I just not like, I hope I'm making sense right now, but when you try to prove to yourself these things that like are insecurities, you can never actually prove them. Like you never end up winning against them. There's always like, oh no, it's not enough because I need to do more because, or you get my point. The reason I reframed that belief. Essentially, somewhere in 2025, I was by the way, I got back into appointment setting at that point, and I was able to take a trip to Malaga, which is in the south of Spain, with a friend of mine. So we were chilling at a resort, we were just having a conversation, and suddenly we were speaking about the topic of cold approaching girls versus getting girls recommended to you through friends. And that's a weird topic, but bear with me. So what his perspective is, bro, if I can have friends recommend like good girls to me, right? Like, and I can get a girlfriend that way, why would you try to specifically like make yourself cold approach and do all this BS just before you like you're worthy of a girl. Because what I used to tell him is like, bro, no, like you gotta cold approach first. Like if you don't cold approach enough, then like you didn't like work for it. You didn't really earn it. It's like if somebody referred a girl to you, then it's like it was just given to you. Like it's there's no honor in that. Like you should go and you should cold approach and do like all this and get rejected, and only then will you finally deserve to like meet a good girl. And he's like, bro, that's so dumb. And he helped me reframe that belief as well. And later on, even I got into playing this game called Elden Ring, and in this game there's this one sword, right, which is hated by everybody in the community. Well, not hated, but it's basically shut on because of how easy it makes the game. It's like the Moonveil Katana, if you're wondering. But I used to use that sword. I used to use something else called the Mimic Tier, which was a like basically two things that made the game so much easier because they were pretty overpowered. And so when I was playing that game, Elden Ring, my objective was to finish the game as quickly as possible. I did not give two fucks about like like making the best out of the boss fights, taking 100 attempts to beat the boss. I didn't give a crap about any of that. I just wanted to get as strong as I possibly could and beat the game. Like my intention with that game was just to beat it as soon as possible. And so when I thought about it that way, it's like I didn't give a crap about using that katana or using like that other cheat item. You know, it's like even though they were overpowered, and people would say like, oh no, you shouldn't use those items because it takes away from the game experience. I didn't give a crap because my objective was to finish the game. And so when I focused on finish the game and I was optimizing for the outcome, I really didn't like, I wasn't bothered by what choice of weapons I was using anymore. It's like, I'm just trying to beat the game, bro. I don't give a crap if it's if it's like a cheating like a cheesy thing or not, you know. So what I'm trying to say with this is like, optimize for the outcome itself. Like look at what it is that you want to achieve. Like figure out genuinely what is your goal, and then find out what's the fastest way to get it, even if it might seem like a shortcut. Because ultimately, like if you don't take a shortcut, like there's other people out there who are taking shortcuts, and you know from school and college or whatever, like it's made to seem like cheating or taking shortcuts is a bad thing. Which hey, like if you're trying to learn a subject and you're cheating your way into learning it, then or into pretending like you've learned it, then sure, like that is probably not a productive way of cheating or taking a shortcut. But if, for example, instead of having to, I don't know, knock on 100 doors, you could just grab the phone and call those 100 people. Why wouldn't you do it? Like, so like there's leverage, you know. It's like you do less effort, but then you get so much more result. Now, this is an abstract example. I know that sometimes like door knocking can be better than actual cold calling, but you get my point. It's like another example would be if nowadays we have like Google Sheets or CRMs that we can log our information into, or we have WhatsApp, you know, or whatever texting software we use. Why would you still send like written mails at that point? Like we have email, why would you send written mails? You know, it's like optimize for the outcome, not what the hardest path is for the sake of it being like more honorable or manly or whatever. Because that's just gay, honestly. Like that's just insecurity, pure insecurity. And looking back at it, it is extremely like extremely insecure. So yeah, basically that. So like if you knew the fastest path and you still chose a long way just to prove something, that's ego. That is not effort, right? And like another way that you're thinking that could help you reframe this belief is that we're all gonna die anyway. 100 years from now, 80 years from now, we're all gonna be dead. And the only thing that will matter is that we lived our lives in a way that actually mattered to us. At least that's what I believe. And so why wouldn't I do everything in my power to get that life as quickly as possible, or to live that life as fast as possible, you know? Like, who cares, man? And if online work is the right vehicle for me to achieve the life that I want as quickly as possible, then why would I say no to that in favor of a path that is harder just so I can prove something to people who don't even give a crap? And so, again, back to the topic of taking shortcuts. Like, why does it matter if you take shortcuts? Like, humans have evolved through using shortcuts and tools. Think about it. Like, carpenters, they use tools to make their woodwork easier. Painters use brushes instead of their fucking hands, right? Or instead of leaves. Construction workers, they use machines. They don't just fucking grab a grip and a brick and just smack it on and use their hands to like put the cement. They have tools for that kind of stuff. They have machinery. Math students, they use calculators. Like, why not just fucking do every calculation themselves? Because they have calculators to make the job easier. It's like, there's no shame in that. It might seem like a shortcut, but it gets them to the result faster, and it doesn't, like, it's a net positive for the world. Salespeople use phones, you know? So what shame is there in using a tool to get to your goal fastest? Like, what shame is there in using a computer to achieve what you want faster than, let's say, working at a factory or lifting boxes or spending your life working a corporate job that you hate? So that's my perspective on that, and that's how I was able to reframe that second belief. Now the third belief that held me back from uh, doing as well as I wanted to online. Well, it's a belief of why me. It's this imposter syndrome, thinking that everybody else was like better than me and I was not qualified enough, or basically I was doubting myself. Like, why me? Why should I be the one to achieve this outcome, or why should I be the one that people listen to? Right, that kind of belief. And so let me give you some context. Basically, when I was working at a factory job, there was a moment in time where I walked into like a separate warehouse, and I saw like a lot of people around my age. I was 18 at the time, so there were other guys that are in their teens, late teens, early 20s, and I would see them working like these. It was also like factory work, like carpentry with machines and heavy equipment in a warehouse where the working conditions were absolute dog shit. It was like 40 degrees Celsius, no ventilation at all. You could tell that the work conditions were not good at all, right? And so I looked at those people, and they didn't really seem to mind the job. Like, none of them had this like hatred or this dissatisfaction in their eyes. Like, some of them were just laughing and just going about their day. And I just thought to myself, you know what? Like, because at the time I was fucking suffering and I hated my life working that factory job. So when I looked at all these people who were seemingly okay working so hard and working like something that in my mind I was like, why the hell would anybody want to do that? When I saw them doing that so seemingly effortlessly, I thought to myself, if you have all these guys who are so much more hardworking and who are like so unbothered and are so mentally tough that they don't feel bad about working these jobs and they feel completely satisfied with it, like, why should I deserve to achieve my goals of working remotely and having an online business per se, when you have guys like that are working so much harder in the shittiest conditions, like the most physically demanding jobs, and still doing it like they don't have a care in the world? And so that was kind of like where that line of thinking came with this belief. So the fact that I hated my life doing that factory work, while they seemed fine with it, made me feel like I was less of a man, or that I wasn't strong enough, or that I wasn't mentally like out there in the world. That basically all this BS in my mind about how I had to be okay with doing something I didn't like because that's what it meant to be a real man, and that's what it meant for me. Like, that's what I had to do, basically. And it kind of goes back to the belief of choosing the harder path, right? And so from having seen those people and making that comparison of like what they're doing in terms of hard work and how they're enjoying it versus me fucking hating it and just slugging through it, it just made me feel so unworthy. Because if those kinds of people, like, they can do all that and they're still stuck in a fucking, like, no shame on them, but like they're still stuck in that kind of job that I deem as like something I never want to go back to. Why would somebody like me who was struggling to do that, why would somebody like me even dream of running an online business or achieving my goal, whatever that was, of going to Japan, right? So that's sort of it. That side of me is what made me feel very unworthy and have all these feelings of imposter syndrome. And also, honestly, like, part of it as well was my lack of discipline outside of work. But that's a whole different topic, right? Basically, I do believe that if you're not keeping your own promises to yourself and you're just acting in a way that's not in alignment with what you want, even outside of work, that can definitely make you like add to your imposter syndrome, because you're like, you can't keep promises to yourself, so how can you keep promises to other people? Random side note though. Basically, that same imposter syndrome is what got me to procrastinate, funny enough, on this business for months at a time. Like, I wanted to do this business for a while, like since midway through 2025. I'm recording this on June 2026, so you can tell that it was a long road for me to actually make the decision to go in on this. And so how do I actually reframe this belief of like the why me and the imposter syndrome? The first thing is that it's genuinely okay to feel negative and to hate the kind of work that other people might love, and vice versa. Like, it's fine for people to love the kind of work that you hate as well. Like, if you think about it, the only reason why society can run the way that it does is you have people who are content where they are, or they're okay with it at least, and they are, those could be the people who work at factories, people in power plants, people in, I don't know, like woodwork, painting. Not to throw any shade on those jobs, like, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, for me, those things which like seem like low labor, like, why the hell would I ever go into that? But for some other people, that could genuinely seem like a life career, or something that they actually enjoy, that they're kind of content with. And so when you think about it, it's like the people who have these dissatisfactions and who don't like what they're doing at the moment, those are the ones who actually go on to become a change, who become the entrepreneurs, who achieve like the success in whatever career they wanted. And it's fine for there to be people who are also content with what they have, because then otherwise society could not run the way that it is. But then why does that person have to be you though? Am I explaining myself? And so something else that I realized that helped me reframe this belief is that there's genuinely people out there who are, I don't want to say dumb, but they're kind of dumb, right? There's people who are kind of dumb who they just act without thinking. Like they might have 2-digit IQs, but they're genuinely so much more successful than you and me or any other people who are maybe like more intelligent. But they do it because they just act, they just execute. They don't think too much. They don't get in their own head about if they're the right person to listen to, if they can do it, if people will judge them. They don't think, why me? Like they don't have, like if you think about it, they're not, like, let's put it this way, they're not intelligent enough to have imposter syndrome, to question why people should listen to them. So they kind of like turn their brain off, go retard mode, and just do the thing, and they get those results anyway. Like it's crazy because I see so many of these people. Like, have you ever seen somebody, whether it's online or in person, and you see them with a certain level of success, and you're like, if I was in their position, I could do a lot better. Like you just have this thought, like there's so many things that this person is doing or not doing that you could generally just excel at and do a lot better. But then why do they have the success and you don't? Something to think about, right? It's because they don't overthink. They get to shoot their shots. And so, if you want some proof of this, like look up a video, search on YouTube, Elon Musk realizing China's richest man is an idiot. Search it up on YouTube. You literally watch that video and you kind of get what I'm getting at here. Like there's people out there who are genuinely like less capable than you, who are getting the result that you want just because they don't have these beliefs, or they don't even question themselves. They don't think, why me? They just fucking do. They shoot their shot. Even at one point, like I've seen videos of Indian guys, and no shame to Indians by the way, but like people with Indian accents closing like $1,000 sales, and I'm like, dude, why can an Indian guy with like the most robotic sounding sales skills close more than me? Like, and it honestly just comes down to belief, and it just comes down to execution. And so the final thing to drive this point home of like, okay, why me? There's always going to be a chance, like there's always going to be a probability to hit a target if you roll the dice enough times. If you spin a wheel, or if you roll a dice, right? Eventually you're going to get the number, or you're going to get the certain like outcome that you're looking for if you just roll enough times, if you just spin the dice enough times, right? There's a mentor of mine that used to say the saying that I love, which is that if you throw shit at a wall, eventually it's going to stick, right? Which meaning like you can have the worst fucking quality of execution, but you can just do, and eventually like you might genuinely just hit the jackpot just through sheer volume. So the answer to the question of why me, why not them, it's like anybody can, like anybody, like the world is your oyster. You can literally do anything you want. But the thing is that the people who don't have the things is because they don't do the actions that are required to get that thing, because they have the beliefs that we spoke about. They have these things that are holding them back. They just don't do shit for the goal that they say that they want, if they even have a goal to begin with. And so it's not a matter of like they don't get the things that you want because even though they're much more hardworking than you, and then therefore that means you can't get your goal because of that. It just means that they're not aligning themselves in their lives and their actions to that goal. And so anybody, like I said, anybody can get anything they want. They just got to do the actions required to get it. And so most people don't do them. And so even though they seemingly like they look like they're working harder, or that they're working more miserable jobs, when you ask yourself like why don't they have the goal, then like it's completely irrelevant. It's just because they haven't physically been doing the actions to get that goal. And I know this sounds like such a fucking neurotic thing to think about. It's this weird belief, but this is exactly what I'm saying. It's like you never realize how dumb these beliefs are until you look back on them. And so back to the percent chance analogy, or this analogy of invoking like luck through sheer volume. It's like you just have to invoke it. You just have to invoke that chance and that hit, basically. A great example of this is with cold calling. No matter how shit you are at cold calling, if you're like, oh, why should I succeed with cold calling? There's so many other people who do cold calling. There's so many people who are better at sales than me. But if you just do 100 cold calls, you're going to get an appointment. Maybe not 100, like it could be 100, could be 200, whatever. Like if you just keep doing cold calls, you're going to get an appointment. If you keep getting appointments, you're eventually going to get a sale. It's like it doesn't matter how shit you are at something. It doesn't matter how much you think that people won't pay you, or how much you think that you won't do good at it. If you just do enough volume, like you literally get anything. Like it's just a matter of repetition, hitting rolling the dice and hitting the jackpot a few times. Lastly, I would even argue that people with this sense of imposter syndrome actually go on to do better once they overcome that belief than the people who don't have it initially. And the reason for that is because they care more. Like from experience, even I've seen it myself where so many people, they'll go on, they'll close a lot of clients, they'll do a lot of sales calls, they'll just somehow, some way get sales, and then they'll get shitty client results. The clients will not make their money back, and they'll feel like they got scammed. And they can sleep at night fine knowing that. I personally can't. And so when you're somebody who came from that background of like having some imposter syndrome, it's like you have that because you care. You wouldn't think to yourself like, why me, if you didn't care, if you didn't care about your clients, if you didn't care about your business, if you didn't care about your skills. So if anything, let that be something that gives you more confidence. Like the fact that there's people out there who are succeeding who just don't give as much fucks as you do, but then you give more. Like the fact that you give more fucks than them should actually be something that hypes you and motivates you a little bit more, because then you know that, like, if these people who don't give a fuck about their clients are getting these results, like imagine you who actually gives a shit. So it's just something to think about. But to kind of close with this final topic of like, why me? Again, it's like anybody can do whatever the fuck they want. It's just that people don't do the actions and don't do the things required to get them. I overestimated how much people actually do, when in reality they don't do jack shit for anything. Like they could be doing a lot at a job, but they don't do anything towards a goal that they're trying to achieve. And so of course they're not going to achieve it. It's just a matter of like cause and effect. Like you literally have to do a cause to get an effect. You have to do an input to get an output. So anybody can get anything. It's not like why you, or why not them, why not him, why not her. It's like we all have the same opportunities, just about actually doing the actions. So that belief is completely irrelevant. And like I said, ultimately everything is just a chance. I mean, if you just shoot your shot, if you talk to the girl, you make the cold call, eventually you're going to hit the jackpot. You're going to roll the number on the dice, and you will score. You'll shoot the shot. You'll score it eventually, and like that's how you'll get the thing. And like even I still nowadays deal with that imposter syndrome. So I'm not saying it's gonna go away immediately, but you just gotta act with this information in mind, and then I guess over time it'll just go away. So yeah, this was a bit of a longer video. It was a bit of a separate thing from what I usually talk about. So this is something that definitely held me back, and I think holds some people back, at least, from finding their way, and like finding their way with online work and online business and that kind of stuff, and actually feeling good about it, which is I think one of the most important things. Because for a good while working remotely, I'd always have this sense of like inferiority to the people around me. I'd be speaking to like people who like worked regular 9 to 5s, and I'd be feeling so inferior to them. I'd be feeling so unworthy. Like at all times, whenever even when I get payments like 2K, 3K, 4K from my setter job, I'd always just be there feeling bad about it, feeling like I wasn't deserving of it. And so of course, randomly over time, I just found ways to lose that money somehow, some way. So yeah, it's a pretty valuable topic if you ask me. Last but not least, back to the main sales pitch, the appointment setting talk. If you do want to learn how to become a setter and make money online, there's a link in the description. Shameless plug. So yep, I hope you find this valuable, and this can actually help you. Have a good one.